Hi students, welcome you all to this session where we are going to discuss the second part of this lesson, Deep Water, which was written by William Douglas. But before we go to the second part, let's have a quick recap of the first part. William O. Douglas had a desire to learn swimming since childhood. But what happened is at the age of 3 or 4, he was knocked down and buried by a wave at a beach in California, due to which he developed a great aversion to water. And at the age of 10 or 11, he decided to learn to swim with water wings at the YMCA pool, since it was safe at the shallow end. While he was sitting alone and waiting for others to come at the YMCA pool, a big boy came and threw Douglas into deep end of the pool. Douglas swallowed water and went straight down to the bottom of the pool. And while going down, he planned to make a big jump upwards but came up slowly. He tried to shout but could not. As he went down the pool the second time, he tried to jump upwards but it was a waste of energy. Terror held him deeper and deeper. And during the third trial, he sucked water instead of air. Light was going out and there was no more panic. So he ceased all his efforts and he became unconscious. He crossed to the oblivion. Now, let's see what happens in the second part. The next I remember, I was lying on my stomach beside the pool vomiting. The chap that threw me in was saying, "But I was only fooling." Someone said, "The kid nearly died. Be all right now. Let's carry him to the locker room." So, what happened here is when William gained consciousness, he was lying on his stomach and beside the pool and was vomiting. He heard someone scolding the boy who had pushed him into the pool. And the voice said that William had almost died. And the boy replied that he was only fooling with him. And the voice also asked the boy to carry William to the locker room. Several hours later, I walked home. I was weak and trembling. I shook and cried when I lay on my bed. I couldn't eat that night. For days, a haunting fear was in my heart. The slightest exertion upset me, making me wobbly in the knees and sick to my stomach. So, wobbly is actually weak. And here what happened is after many hours, William walked home. He felt weak and shivered and he kept on crying as he lay on the bed. He was unable to eat food and the fear kept on haunting him for many days. So the instant made him physically upset. The slightest work made him feel that his knees were unable to bear his weight. So he would feel like vomiting. I never went back to the pool. I feared water. I avoided it whenever I could. A few years later, when I came to know the waters of the Cascades, I wanted to get into them. And whenever I did, whether I was wading the Titan or bumping river or bathing in warm lake of the goat rocks, the terror that had seized me in the pool would come back. It would take possession of me completely. My legs would become paralyzed. Icy horror would grab my heart. So, here what happened is William did not go to the swimming pool as he feared the water and he remained away from water. And Cascades here actually means waterfall. So after some years what happened? William came to know of a waterfall and wanted to go in it. And whenever he went for swimming in different rivers like the Titan, Bumping River, Warm Lake of the Goat Rocks, the fear of water returned. So it would grab him completely and disable his limbs and grab his heart. So this was the problem he was undergoing. This handicap stayed with me as the years rolled by. In canoes on main lakes fishing for landlocked salmon, bass fishing in New Hampshire, trout fishing on the Detritus and Metolius in Oregon, fishing for salmon on the Columbia, at Bumping Lake in the Cascades. Wherever I went, the haunting fear of the water followed me. It ruined my fishing trips, deprived me of the joy of canoeing, boating and swimming. So here, handicap is actually a situation or a circumstance that makes progress or success very difficult. And canoes here, we all know, is small boats. And ruined is destroyed, deprived means to take away. So here what happened is, the fear of water remained with William as he grew up. And on the boating trips to different lakes in the main regions like New Hampshire, Detritus, Metolius, Columbia, Bumping Lake, wherever he went for fishing, different varieties of fishes like salmon, bass and trout, the fear followed him. So due to which what happened? His fishing trips were destroyed as he did not enjoy boating and swimming due to the fear. I used every way I knew to overcome this fear, but it held me firmly in its grip. Finally, one October, I decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. I went to a pool and practiced 5 days a week, an hour each day. The instructor put a belt around me. A rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable. He held on to the end of the rope and we went back and forth across the pool, hour after hour, day after day, week after week. On each trip across the pool, a bit of the panic seized me. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope and I went under, some of the old terror returned and my legs froze. So it was 3 months before the tension began to slack. Then he taught me to put my face under water and exhale, and to raise my nose and inhale. I repeated the exercise hundreds of times. Bit by bit, I shed part of the panic that seized me when my head went under water. So here cable is nothing but a thick rope, and slack is to reduce. Shed means removed. Panic is fear, and seized means gripped. So what happened here is, William tried to ward off the fear but was unable to get rid of it. So finally what happened, in the month of October, he hired an instructor to teach him swimming. And he would practice for an hour each day, 5 days a week. So William describes the learning process now in this para. The instructor actually put a belt around William's waist, and the belt was attached to a thick rope. And the rope went through an overhead pulley and was held by the instructor. So it ensured that in case William drowned, the instructor would pull him out. So now William swam across the length of the pool for several weeks. And whenever the instructor loosened the rope, he went down into the water and the fear would return. So it would immobilize his legs immediately. So it was after 3 months of practice that William got little comfortable, and then the instructor taught him to breathe in the water. He taught him to put his face under the water and exhale his breath. So he was taught to raise his nose out of the water and then again inhale. So William practiced this several times, and gradually he got rid of this panic that would grab him when he put his head under the water. Next, he held me at the side of the pool and had me kick with my legs. For weeks I did just that. At first my legs refused to work, but they gradually relaxed and finally I could command them. So command here is order. In this third phase of the learning process, what happened is, the instructor taught William to kick the water surface with his legs. So he did this for many weeks. And initially actually his legs did not move, but gradually they relaxed and finally William could order them to kick in the desired way. So here next is, thus piece by piece he built a swimmer, and when he had perfected each piece, he put them together into an integrated whole. In April he said, now you can swim. Dive off and swim the length of the pool, crawl stroke. So, stroke is nothing but a particular style of moving the arms and legs in swimming. So, here finally the instructor made a swimmer out of William in phases. And when William had perfected each phase, he compiled them. That is, joined them. And in the month of April, what happened is the instructor told William that now he can swim. And he asked him to dive into the pool and swim the length of the pool in a particular style called the crawl stroke. I did. The instructor was finished. But I was not finished. I still wondered if I would be terror-stricken when I was alone in the pool. I tried it. I swam the length up and down. Tiny vestiges of the old terror would return. But now I could frown and say to that terror, trying to scare me yet? Well, here's to you, look. And off I'd go for another length of the pool. So here what happened? William swam and the classes came to an end. And vestiges here is actually the traces. So here William had not overcome the fear yet and wondered if the terror would grab him when he would be alone in the water. So he tried to swim alone in the pool and the terror returned in small phases. But now as he knew how to swim, he faced the terror with confidence and he swam another length of the pool. This went on until July, but I was still not satisfied. I was not sure that all the terror had left. So I went to the Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire, dived off a dock at Triggs Island and swam 2 miles across the lake to Stampact Island. I swam the crawl, breaststroke, side stroke and backstroke. Only once did the terror return. When I was in the middle of the lake, I put my face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. The old sensation returned in miniature. I laughed and said, well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me? It fled and I swam on. So here miniature is nothing but small size. So William swam like this till the month of July but was not satisfied. He wanted to be sure that all of the fear had left him. So he went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire and there he dived into it from Triggs Island and swam for 2 miles up to Stampact Island. And he swam in different styles. He used the crawl stroke and then the breaststroke, side stroke and backstrokes. So the terror returned only once when he was in the middle of the lake. And when he put his head underwater, he saw water all around and the fear returned. This time, William laughed at the terror and said to it that it could not harm him. He saw that the terror vanished and he resumed swimming. And here it is addressed as Mr. Terror here because it is author's fear of water and it is addressed so because the author had personified it as his enemy who wanted to defeat him. That is the reason it is addressed as Mr. Terror. Yet I had residual doubts. At my first opportunity, I hurried west, went up the Titan to Conrad Meadows, up the Conrad Creek Trail to Mead Glacier and camped in the high meadow by the side of Warm Lake. The next morning I striped, dived into the lake and swam across to the other shore and back just as Doc Corcoran used to do. I shouted with joy and Gilbert Peak returned the echo. I had conquered my fear of water. So here what happened? William still had some doubt about the fear. So what he did, he hurried towards the western direction. He went up the Titan, reached Conrad Meadows, walked up the Conrad Creek Trail to Mead Glacier and then he camped at the meadow by the Warm Lake. The next morning he wore the swimming costume and dived into the lake. And he swam across it to the other end and returned just like the famous American Doc Corcoran used to do. And William shouted with joy as he had overcome his fear. And his voice resounded as the mountain peak named Gilbert Peak reverberated it. He had overcome the fear. The experience had a deep meaning for me, as only those who have known stark terror and conquered it can appreciate. In death, there is peace. There is terror only in the fear of death, as Roosevelt knew when he said, "All we have to fear is fear itself," because I had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce. The will to live somehow grew in intensity. So here what happened is the experience had a great importance in William's life, this experience. So he said that death was fearful and he realized that death was peaceful and only the fear of death was fearful. And he recollects the words of one of the President of America, Roosevelt. Roosevelt had said that all we have to fear is the fear itself. So as William had experienced this death and the fear of death, his desire to live grew immensely. At last I felt released, free to walk the trails and climb the peaks and to brush aside fear. So here he felt released from fear and was free to walk up the trails and climb up the mountains fearlessly. So this is the end of the second part and it's the end of the lesson. So let's summarize what we have learnt in the first part as well as the second part. This story tells us how the writer, that is William Douglas, overcame his fear of water and learned swimming with sheer determination and willpower. So he had developed a terror of water since childhood, and when he was 3 or 4 years old, the writer had gone to California with his father. So one day on the beach, what happened? The waves knocked the child here is William, down and swept over him. And he was terrified, but the father, who knew that there was no harm, laughed. So the experience bred a permanent fear of water in the child's subconscious mind, that is in the mind of William. Subconscious mind of William, this experience had bred a permanent fear. And still another incident also, which was more serious, increased his terror. What was that? When the writer was trying to learn swimming in YMCA swimming pool in Yakima, one day he was waiting for other boys. So a big boy, suddenly what he did, he played a dangerous prank and he pushed him into the water. The writer was terribly frightened. He went down 9 feet into the water. And when he reached the bottom, he jumped upward with all his strength. He came up but very slowly. He tried to catch hold of something like a rope but grasped only at the water. So he tried to shout but no sound came out and he went down again. His lungs ached, head throbbed and he grew dizzy. So he felt paralyzed with fear. All his limbs were paralyzed. Only the movement of his heart told him that he was alive. So again what he did is he tried to jump up. But this time also his limbs could not move at all. And he looked for these ropes, ladders and water wings, but all in vain. Then what happened? He went down again. The third time, this time all his efforts and fear ceased. He was moving towards a peaceful death. The writer was in peace. When he came to consciousness, he found himself lying on the side of the pool with the other boys nearby. So the terror that he had experienced in the pool never left him. It haunted him for years and years to come out of it. And it spoiled many of his expeditions of canoeing, swimming, fishing. So it spoiled all his pleasures in Maine and Hampshire, Detritus, Columbia and Bumping Lake, etc. in all these places. So, but the writer was determined to conquer his terror. So what did he do? He took the help of a swimming instructor to learn swimming. And the instructor then taught him various actions necessary for this swimming, part by part. Then he put his face under water and exhaled and inhaled, raising it above water. He practiced it for several weeks. He had to kick with his legs a few weeks on the side of the pool. At last, he combined all these actions and made the writer to swim. And he learned swimming, but the terror continued. So deep goes our childhood experiences, is it not? So fearful is the fear of fear. Whenever he was in water, the terror returned. So the writer tried to terrorize terror itself. He tried to face a new challenge. When terror came, he confronted it by asking it sarcastically as to what it can really do to him. And he then plunged into the water and as if to defy the fear. So once he took courage, the terror vanquished. And he faced the challenge deliberately in various places like the warm lake. And finally, he conquered fear at last. So what's the message conveyed in this lesson? This deep water tells us how the writer overcame his fear of water and learned swimming through sheer determination and willpower. And he had developed a terror of water since childhood. So the message conveyed by the story is that it is not death but the fear of death that creates terror in our mind. So that fear needs to be shaken off. Otherwise, any fears can be conquered if we try hard. Otherwise, if we don't conquer fear, it will overpower us. So hope you all enjoyed this session and you understood this lesson. Have a great day. Thank you. Stay safe.